Let's get more analysis on this from Michael Shoebridge, though, the founding director of Strategic Analysis Australia. Thanks for your time. Is this just us saying, look, we can't be everywhere, we're looking after our region? Are you surprised that we've politely declined this request, if you like?
Well, Tom, I think it's a bit worse than that. It's true that our region is our priority and the Navy's been doing good work. We know that with HMAS Toowoomba. But the real truth here is we don't have a ship to send. And this is a bit of a scandal, really. We've got 11 major surface ships. 8 of them are old Anzac frigates. None of them are really right for this mission because they're not able to really deal with cheap armed drones. So it's an embarrassment that we don't have a single ship that our Navy can send, and it's an excuse that it's all about the region.
So when you say they can't deal with them, is that a manoeuvrability issue? Is it a modern sort of systems issue? What's the
No, it's about the kind of defensive systems on the ships. So they've got very advanced anti-ship missile capabilities. So a cruise missile fired by the Houthis, both the Anzacs and the air warfare destroyers could deal with that. But cheap armed drones, they're going to soak up the very expensive missiles the ships have, and the ships would run out.
You need something at lower level, and we just haven't modernised in that regard?
That's right. We don't have proper counter-drone defences on the ships.
Okay. Interesting what's happening with Lloyd Austin, that he wants Israel to have a more targeted offensive. This comes off the back of the shooting of Israeli hostages by the IDF. It said it was a mistake. But does this mistake make it harder for the IDF to argue it's always being as careful as it should be on civilian casualties and deaths?
I think it does, and it reminds me of how difficult urban fighting is against a terrorist organisation that's deliberately hiding within a civilian population. So it's quite credible that Hamas would wave white flags around and pretend to be Israelis, but it's a horrible misjudgment by the Israeli military involved, and it shows this is a very difficult urban war.
But something Israel has to weigh up is it's very important for them to have support for this, not just morally, but in terms of its crucial ally, the US. So this will be something they'll be conscious of.
Exactly, and it's going to just widen the pressure for them to focus the operation much more directly on Hamas, and also to really help resolve the humanitarian crisis.
Okay, so back home, what's happening at the moment in far north Queensland? Obviously the airport's shut, but we haven't seen helicopters that don't need an airport. I haven't seen helicopters involved up there much at all. And I know they said initially weather conditions stopped these rooftop evacuations. But is that a bit of a surprise, given we saw them used a lot for those floods last year, for example, in New South Wales?
Yes, Tom, it's a bit like not having a ship to send to the Gulf. You know, for $52.6 billion of money going into the Defence Organisation this year alone, it turns out the Navy doesn't have a ship to send, and the Army and Air Force don't have utility helicopters that could be used to help the people in northern Queensland. So really, this is a scandal about what we're getting for this massive defence spend.
So we obviously had the tragedy involving those helicopters earlier this year, and the decision as a result meant the Taipans were withdrawn earlier. Are we actually experiencing the reality of that capability gap right now?
We are. We're experiencing a real capability dip in the utility helicopters, and we're experiencing a similar capability dip with the Navy. There'll be no new warship into the Navy for 10 years. The Taipans were a problem hiding in plain sight. They could have been withdrawn much earlier, and we would have had the Blackhawks around by now.
And they'd be able to be up north.
This is one of their roles, utility helicopters taking people off trees and off roofs.
Michael Shoebridge, appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tom.